So again, I have an incredible opportunity to welcome someone on the stage who's going to do our final presentation, as well as help shed some additional light on some interesting companies doing some phenomenal things on the platform. Mackenzie and I actually compete a little bit because we both love what we do every day, and we insist that each of us has the best job in the company. Mackenzie may have me beat because he actually has the chance to travel the world, meeting with incredible startups, really pushing the envelope in their industries. And not only does he get to learn from them and help provide coaching and mentoring, but he also gets to bring interviews with them to light. And so you'll see his Twitter handle when he gets up here. I'd encourage you, if you're not following him now, to start, because he brings some really excellent interviews and insights from companies doing great things all over the world. So again, we're now going to be welcoming a gentleman who brings a whole slew of experience from the logistics, from the finance, from the retail, from the social media, and the dating industry. I've asked him to try to help identify the red thread that connects through all of those industries, and he hasn't been able to do that yet, but hopefully tonight you'll be able to help me. And again, today he's going to really help end with a very inspiring and innovative story with some excellent startups using AWS in some phenomenal ways. So before I introduce Mackenzie, I want to thank every single one of you for the commitment of time and your investment in the event today. We hope to see you again next year. And with that, let's have a great end to this special day, and help me welcome Mackenzie Kosut on the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mackenzie Kosut, and I'm the Global Startup Evangelist for Amazon Web Services. I joined Amazon a little over a year ago. But before joining, I worked at a large number of startups based in New York City. This included being one of the original engineers at Tumblr, helping to grow and scale that company to over 20 billion page views a month. I was a founding engineer at Oscar, where I helped grow and build an entire insurance company on top of AWS in less than 3 months. And I ran many engineering teams over at Betterment, which today, they have over $8 billion in assets under management. But I'm most excited to be in my role today at Amazon, because as mentioned, it gives me that chance to go around the world and really hear about how startups are making a real impact in the world. This is a slide from earlier this morning, and I want to take a moment just to really look at it and take it in, because there's a lot happening on this one slide. There are so many industries being represented, and this is just a subset of the total number of startups that are building today on top of AWS. Whether you're improving the hospitality industry with Airbnb, whether you're translating the world using machine learning and crowdsourcing with Unbabel, or you're fighting to cure cancer with Flatiron Health, there's just not an industry out there that is not in some way being improved through startups and Amazon. And we've had more startups build on top of AWS than any other platform out there. We've seen over the past 10 years, as our infrastructure has evolved, so has really the adoption from the startup side. And we started back in 2006 with EC2 and S3, and those are still widely adopted services to this day. But bigger things have even come out since then. In 2011, Elastic Beanstalk came out. Allows you to quickly take an application, deploy it, scale it out. That's helped companies like Prezi, who have 60 million active users, deliver 200 million presentations. And they took the opportunity to go back and start rebuilding all their most critical backend services on top of Elastic Beanstalk. In 2013, Kinesis came around, and that really changed the way that people were working with real-time streaming data. Customers like Supercell are doing 45 billion events every day through Kinesis. That's one customer. It's a phenomenal amount of volume. And where I see startups having the most innovation is when they take the opportunity to look at these new services that launch almost on a weekly basis and find out ways that they can improve some architecture or systems they had built in the past. Lambda gave the company Bustle this opportunity. So a little background about Bustle. Bustle is a large media startup out of New York City. They have 50 million active users today. They recently acquired Elite Daily. I have a very small engineering team. When they began, they were a traditional Node application, just running on traditional EC2. They saw Lambda and API Gateway back in the early days, and they said, what if we just started using Lambda instead of having to manage all of our instances ourselves? And by doing that, moving one property over, they saw already an 84% cost reduction. Immediately, they started migrating all their other properties and services over to API Gateway and Lambda. Today, they don't have any servers running in their environment. They have a team of now 16 engineers, and not a single person is dedicated to patching servers, managing instances, all the day-to-day stuff that distracts you away from building a good application. On the right, there's a great case study on our site that you can look up, and it talks about how they take all the real-time events and activities that are happening on Bustle, all the clicks, all the article reads, and they stream that data into API Gateway, get it into Redshift so they can view that data and understand what their users are doing to provide a better experience, understand what content they should be generating, and really understand what direction they should be pushing their company towards. And data is important for any company. I was having a chat with my friend Samir, who runs a really great open source, quick and dirty BI tool called Metabase. And he said data isn't slow until it is. And there's this really common pattern in a lot of companies where when you first ask a simple question like, how many sales did I have on Monday? It might take you, if it's a slow query, let's say 60 seconds to pull that data back out. And you think, no big deal, I'm going to start moving on to my next question. Well, other people start joining that company and using that same query. And now when somebody wants to say, well, how many sales happened over the past 5 weeks, all of a sudden that 60 seconds starts to add up. Anytime you see slow data being processed anywhere in your company, it is having residual effects elsewhere across all of your teams. You want to be incentivizing people to be asking more questions about your data, not going, I don't want to waste the time to ask this question multiple times because I don't want to spend 10 minutes doing this. As you saw in Adrian's earlier keynote, we have a lot of great managed services that help you build the right type of data infrastructure. So whether you want to do a massive data warehouse on top of Redshift, or even with Redshift Spectrum and start querying exabytes worth of data, if you want to start doing Elastic MapReduce clusters and start playing around with Spark, HBase, Hive, and more, there are a wide number of services that can build the right type of data pipelines to get those answers quicker to your organization. The one area that we're seeing the biggest impact to the customer and the consumer experience directly is through machine learning, right? The idea to look at all the predictive behavior of your customers and users up to that point, and then make predictions on what they might do in the future. A company here in Stockholm who is leveraging AWS, or pardon me, Amazon's machine learning today to really improve the user experience is CREE. So I'd like to welcome Joachim from CREE to tell you more about their journey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joachim Edenius. I'm a co-founder and CTO at CREE. So I've been working for 12 years now with startups in games, ad tech, and social networks. But I have to say that working with CREE to revolutionize healthcare has been by far the most rewarding and most challenging part of my career. Here we go. So CREE is a new way to meet your doctor. When you're feeling sick or you have sick children, instead of going down to the healthcare center and wait for hours together with other sick people, you just open our app, describe your symptoms, and meet the doctor right away in a video meeting. So you get the same kind of help that you would have gotten in a regular meeting, like advice or a prescription or a referral or a sick note, but you get it instantly and from anywhere. So we founded this company back in 2014 when we realized that, wow, why isn't this already possible? A year later, we made it possible by releasing the first version of our product. So we've been live now for more than 2 years, and we're making really good progress. We currently have more than 100,000 users in Sweden, and we're also live since a couple of months in Spain and Norway. And we're doing around 1% of Sweden's primary healthcare meetings now, and we're growing really fast, like you can see on this graph. And if we continue to grow the way we plan to, we will have a great chance of drastically improving the way healthcare works throughout Europe in just a couple of years. So what's the background? Why are we doing this? Well, the cost and resources needed to provide healthcare is increasing rapidly in almost all countries. And this leads to bad accessibility. It's hard and time-consuming to get a meeting with your doctor, and this leads to frustrated patients that stay sick longer than they need to, but it also leads to inequalities. So if you live in a good part of town, it can take you maybe a couple of days to get a meeting with your doctor. If you live in a not-so-great part of town, or even out in the countryside, it could take several weeks to meet your doctor. So how do we solve this? Well, by using the internet, we're able to find and recruit great doctors from all across the country, or even doctors working abroad, and match them instantly with patients from all across the country, or even patients out traveling. And we're also able to provide features that would otherwise be impossible in the old system, like, for example, meeting a doctor in your preferred language. So currently, in our Swedish app, you can meet a doctor in more than 20 different languages. So how do we use AWS? Well, except for running everything on EC2, we're using a lot of the other parts of the stack. And we just keep adding more. So why do we do this? Well, shortly put, it's for technical advantage. We want to be able to ship more and better products faster than our competitors. And we really believe that using AWS is helping us with this. We're a small team, only 8 software engineers. So we just need for everything to just work, and with a minimum of operational complexity. So a recent example where we used another service of AWS is for machine learning. Using data together with machine learning is a game changer for online healthcare, and it's definitely something that we at CREE will be working a lot with. And in this use case, we wanted to look at the user free text input when they describe how they feel before the meeting and predict the symptom category that they were describing. If we could do that, we could ask a number of symptom-specific follow-up questions, as well as build symptom-specific feature flows to help the doctor and the patient prepare better for the meeting. So doing this, we uploaded our training data to S3, train the model, and we're able to get real-time predictions through an API endpoint, and all of this in an afternoon. And then with some further tweaks, adding more data, we actually got our machine learning model to perform almost on par with human performance. And as we keep adding more training data, and maybe even tweak our model some more, we will be able to surpass human prediction performance with this. And that's pretty good, and that's very useful. And it's definitely, I think, an example of how we get technical advantage from using AWS. So looking forward, a couple of projects that we will do on top of the AWS stack. We're building a new data analytics pipeline to find out more about our users. We're using mobile analytics together with S3, Lambda, and Redshift for this. And then a couple of more machine learning projects. We will look at doctor decision support, so helping our doctors to make the right decisions. And also, of course, helping them to not make the wrong decisions. Another thing, a little bit more further in the future, will be proactive healthcare, so helping our patients to stay well, looking at data that's coming in from their connected devices and gadgets and wearables, looking at that data and giving them advice on how to stay well, but also if they're still getting sick, we want CREE to notice before them so that we can tell them and that they can act as early as possible on this. So I really think and hope that Amazon will keep providing us with the sharp tools that we need to solve all of these issues. Thank you very much.
Nice job. So one piece that I really love about CREE's story is here are 8 software developers who are now servicing 1% of the entire Swedish population for primary care visits. Like, that's just tremendous. By leveraging AWS, it really demonstrates that cloud has removed the constraints around speed and agility. I want to talk, CREE's demonstrated a great point of running lean And I want to talk a little bit about that. There are two principles out of Lean that I think are applicable for any organization. And the first is eliminate wait states. This can be defined literally as waiting on something. Traditionally, through IT, you would have to wait days, weeks, even months to get access to a server. And that really slows down and stifles any chance for experimentation, building, and trying new ideas. In fact, I've seen enterprises very recently go through bidding auctions on who's going to get access to that brand new, shiny, racked server. This shouldn't be the way it is in 2017. It doesn't have to be. With AWS, you're able to provision those servers on demand, as many as you want, try that experiment, and then shut it down when you're done. But wait states goes beyond just resources. Look around your teams and find those opportunities where some teams are blocked on other teams. This could be a situation where, hey, I have an application deployment that I'm trying to do. I need another team to do that deploy for me. You want to try to make all your teams as autonomous as possible. And you can do that through building a lot of self-service tools, a lot of automation. And you can identify these areas of opportunity by just looking through your ticketing system and seeing where teams are complaining the most about trying to get their product out the door. The second is eliminate waste. And a very simple way that you can think about waste is anything that doesn't benefit the customer. Nicholas Carr had a really great write-up in her paper in the Harvard Business Review titled, "IT Doesn't Matter." And he's not saying that IT doesn't matter. What he's saying is, at a certain level, across any IT organization, there's a basic amount of IT resources that everybody needs. Everybody needs compute, storage, database, networking. And because of that, it's not a competitive differentiator. The more you're focused on managing that infrastructure, the less you're focused on what's important. Listening to your customers, getting that feedback into your application, and getting that application back out into your customers' hands. The great thing is, a lot of our services fall within that realm of common IT that you shouldn't be focused on. If you take a step back, it's really good to kind of understand what's driving these new resource models. The first is that there's really increasing uncertainty in the market. The ability to know that your new application or your new service is going to launch, knowing that how well it's going to do, is becoming increasingly difficult. Because there's a growing abundance of companies launching every single day. And as a result, you're seeing just intensified competition. It's extremely rare to have any kind of application out there that doesn't have some kind of direct competitor somewhere around the globe. But the real big shift has been from the consumer side. There's a great amount of growing consumer power. And you can think of this as, 10 years ago, you go buy, or let's say 20 years ago, you go and buy a television. When that TV breaks, you're very likely just to go buy the exact same television for no reason other than it's the TV brand that you associated with. There was this inherent brand loyalty that just does not exist anymore. At the moment that there's a better, faster, cheaper, prettier, more productive product out there than what you have, your customers are going to jump. And so if you have all of these different new driving forces, you really need a new resource model to work within those constraints. Now, I know you can probably look at this slide and think, this is just a marketing slide for cloud, but it's not. These are core economics principles that have been applied across organizations for years. This has been applied in marketing, logistics, and HR, and more, but not in IT. And the reason is, it used to be that in order to get access to new services or a lot of compute or a lot of storage, these old school IT vendors would say, no problem, just sign this paper and you'll be committed to us for 5 years. That's a big risk. A lot can happen in 5 years. So you need new models to work. You need the ability to access and acquire resources on demand, turn fixed costs into variable costs, pay for what you use, turn something down. If it's not working, you want to get rid of that server, and always be able to have access to the newest, best, fastest services. And so through this, you've really seen a new type of development model emerge. The idea of reducing your risk, building smaller, targeted applications, none of these large monoliths anymore, delivering these small targeted applications out into your consumer hands so you can find out from your users what they love, what they don't love, what they wish your product could do, what they wish they didn't do. The quicker you can get this into your consumers' hands, get the feedback in, the quicker you can get that into your product and continue this cycle. It means the more experiments you can do. If you can drive the cost of doing this whole cycle down to essentially zero, it means that you can be doing more and more experiments. And more experiments will lead to more innovation. One thing to know about an experiment is if you know the outcome of that experiment, then it's not an experiment to begin with. So take risks and just get really good at course correcting, getting the feedback you need, and pushing out that new product into your customers' hands. A company here in Stockholm who experimented with something new, which I think is actually kind of cool, is Default. Default is the entirely free 2D game engine coming out of King of Candy Crush fame. Default has been using Amazon for many, many years, even in the early 2000s, using us, or mid-2000s, using us for scaling out their builds for games. So, you have a very rich game that you want to compile. They would spin a massive amount of compute and then tear it down after that game was finally compiled. But as they started releasing more and more levels and updates to their video games, they realized that the game itself is increasing in size tremendously. Right? You want to increase the user experience by adding new levels, but when you have to force your users to download 140 megs, it becomes kind of not a good experience for the end user. So what they did is, in their 2D engine, they released a new feature called Live Update. This lets you take all the levels you have, you put in your S3 information, and it will deploy this out into S3, globally distribute it, then it gets fronted by CloudFront. As your users are playing this game, no matter where they are in the world, let's say they're trying to beat level 13, in the background it's automatically updating level 14. So it's incrementally updating from the nearest POP location. So it really gives them a chance to continuously push out new content, new levels, new graphics, new experiences to their customers without forcing them to go back to the App Store and do full updates. So Default really understood the power of elasticity and availability. And another company out of Denmark who understands this very well is the #1 wine app in the world. And that's Vivino. To tell you more about their journey on AWS, I'd like to introduce Berger from Vivino.
Hi. So, my name is Berger, and as said, I am the CTO of Vivino. Not sure how many people here actually know Vivino, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. Vivino was founded in Copenhagen, and in 2010 it launched its first mobile app. Its purpose was to build up and establish a large database of wine, one that both wine enthusiasts and hapless consumers alike could use to know and learn about wine. Today, you can use this app to take a photo of a wine label. For example, are you faced with the dilemma of choosing a wine from a store or a restaurant? Did someone hand you a glass of the best wine you've ever tasted? Well, open it up, snap a photo of the label, and we'll match it. You can know what the Vivino community thinks of this wine via its ratings and reviews. You can see how much the wine costs, or based on feedback from other users or price from online merchants. You can deep dive into all kinds of details about the wine if you want to know more, where the wine is made, by whom, using what grapes, and so forth. The app can also provide recommendations on wines you might like, which you can then buy via the in-app marketplace. Many people just use the app to remember the wines they had, others to take detailed notes or manage their own wine cellars. Today, it's the #1 wine app in the world, and we have over 23 million users that contribute scans and ratings for millions of wines around the globe. But why am I here? Well, much like the Vivino founders, I also love wine. My background is as a software developer, And when I discovered Vivino, I was employed as a head of development at a tech startup in Tokyo, Japan. Well, I instantly fell in love with the app. Having tried a wide variety of wine apps to manage my own journey through the world of wine, Vivino was the shitsnit. Vivino was going exactly where I thought a wine app needed to go. Seeing that, I somehow managed to convince them to hire me. And moving to sunny Copenhagen, I got to work on what was already a growing startup. For any technological startup, time to market is quite critical. And you kind of must decide where to begin and who you want to trust. You want to pick the problems that you're looking to solve and avoid spending too much time worrying about other stuff. For Vivino, it was about building the wine library. We didn't have a database and we didn't have any images. An application was built to take images of wine, and a system was built to process this picture, capture the info, and then match it with whatever we had. But for this, you need to run infrastructure, application servers, databases, storage for all these images. When I started in 2013, Vivino was already using AWS's EC2. It was an easy and obvious solution that freed the company from dealing with hardware directly and concentrate on its own core ideas and build the software to execute them. From building the wine library to gaining recognition for its usefulness and building on top of that to put great wine within everyone's grasp, Vivino has been growing on top of Amazon's web service throughout its evolution. At first, it was rickety. We had all our wine images, we stored them on these large EPS drives that were shared and mounted on all of our application servers. APIs would receive these images and save them directly to this drive. This and a lot of other things just didn't scale. We soon migrated all of our images to S3 and served them to CloudFront, reducing image load latency and giving all the mobile clients a lot faster response. Application servers were, of course, made to scale up and down automatically based on incoming load to handle our daily and weekly peaks. While application servers are relatively easy to scale out, databases are far less so. When the burden of running the database was getting overwhelming, and we picked all the low-hanging fruit of optimizing slow queries and so forth, we made the transition to RDS, where ever new and larger instances were being offered. Instances that could bring us simple and immediate capacity and painless backups. Just to give you an idea of how Vivino has progressed through the years, I'd like to show you this graph. My old physics professor, he always taught me that you should always label your access. So I'm going to take you through them. If you look to the left, you see millions of users represented by the blue line. On the right, you have millions of labels uploaded per day in yellow. At the bottom, we have time from late 2012 to earlier this year. While the blue line maps a relatively steady influx of users, the yellow one shows our weekly and annual peaks. The bottoms are Mondays, the peaks are Saturdays. And the two spikes at the end of the year, well, of course, they're Christmas and New Year's Eve. Every year, we spend at least 3 months preparing for that end of the year. Sometimes we forget, and sometimes we just barely make it. I'll let you guess which ones are which. Sometimes it's easy, just like vertically scaling up your database on RDS. And sometimes we forget, busy doing other things like releasing new hot features, and then we frantically run around trying to stay alive, deploying fixes in Wayne while the Christmas dinner gets cold. But every year it's different. Sometimes we just rewrite code. We've been migrating our whole API from PHP code to the Go language. Huge difference. Last year, we went with synchronized caches for a lot of wine and user data, and that's what got us through the last one. This year, we're looking at federating our main database, and we'll probably be doing some sharding as well. But AWS has been a steady and supportive partner. We've been able to leverage a number of features that have made some of our complex tasks quite easy. We've used SNS to send mobile notifications from our early days, and now we're hitting about 15 million messages in a month. One of the major sources of income for Vivino has been direct-to-user wine sales and promotions. For this, we leverage AWS's simple email service for sending safe, high-throughput emails, and we've now scaled this to over 100 emails per month, and this brings in a large portion of our revenues. Last year, our website was being pounded by crawlers, collecting data aggressively, consuming a lot of our resources. Without much effort, our web team was able to pick out an open source throttling solution, plug it into AWS's Elastic Cache for a quick and easy solution. Looking to the future, the TTL feature for DynamoDB opens up a lot of use cases for me, and I'm very excited to try that out, see if we can move some of our data and services there. We're taking our first steps with Redshift and Kinesis as a data warehouse solution for business intelligence and customer relationship management solution integration. I'm also looking forward to move to more application containerization and orchestration services. Most people think, whoa, okay, one too many. Did I jump? Okay. Current, next. All right, yeah, but for Vino, it's Amazon has been a steady partner in this. It's hard to keep up with all the applications and services that Amazon puts out. I can't even keep up with learning all of them. They're coming out so fast. But I look forward to keeping up, and they're always active in offering like more power for lower price and brand new features. So as we continue to grow and scale, I hope to leverage their work so we here at Vivino can continue to focus on ours. Thank you all.
Sorry. So as you might have seen on this next slide, digital transformation is big. It's a topic that a lot of companies are talking about. We've seen tremendous digital transformation, large organizations, for example, GE, who's migrating over 9,000 workloads over to AWS. But I want to make the argument that digital transformation is not reserved just for the enterprises. Right? Every company should always be finding ways to digitally transform themselves, reinvent what you've had using better, newer services. And we saw that earlier with Bustle, and there's lots of great customer success stories about that today. One way that you can do that is through leveraging the large number of managed services that exist. And I want to kind of demonstrate the value of managed services just so it makes it a little more relatable. So let's take a topic that we can all relate to, and that's, for example, databases. It's day one as a startup. You need a database, and there's no question that downloading MySQL and installing it on an instance is perhaps one of the easiest things you can do. Starting up that daemon and just putting data into it, you're up and going. You're handling those 1,000 users, no problem. That's not where the complexity is. The complexity is the moment you realize, oh, I really need backups for this data. And oh no, we're starting to grow in the number of users we have, so now I start clustering this out. And oh, I need to start putting this in multiple regions and having high availability, low latency access for users wherever they are. If you look historically at some of the large startups who have been around for 5-10 years and didn't take the managed service approach, it's very typical to see large database teams trying to manage these massive clusters, where if they had gone back and just started with the managed service, it would have made their lives a lot easier. But this isn't true for just databases. It's true for search clusters, for EMR clusters, AI services. So if you're making a choice and you're about to start building a new project, I encourage you not to fall into the typical pattern of, I've done this before in the past, I know how to solve this problem, I'm going to solve it the way that I'm comfortable doing. Look at all the new services that are out there and see how people are tackling these challenges today. Because these services will help your company grow and scale in a much easier way. You'll need less operational overhead to manage it. And to be honest, you end up sleeping a lot more at night without having to wake up at 2 a.m. and respond to any kind of like weird database failure on a misconfiguration. So managed services take care of all of this for you, right? Makes it super easy to scale, super easy to configure and optimize. We're going to push those updates out to you. If you haven't ever felt the actual pain of trying to manually update MySQL or Postgres services for yourself, and that fear of, oh no, I hope all the data is actually there, it's all, my application is still going to work the way I hope, Managed services make this extremely easy to receive those updates, and it's not something you really have to be concerned with. On top of that, we make it very simple to build a really nice security model in front of those resources through IAM, through security groups, through KMS, and more. A pattern I'm seeing that's starting to emerge in some companies, and I want to give you a little warning on this, is some people think, okay, I'm going to take a stateful service like a database, I'm going to stick it in a container, and then I'm going to scale it out on a cluster. And they think that's just as good as a managed service. But that's really only solving one part of the problem. You can scale a little quicker, right? But that's the easy part. You already have that on top of EC2. The real challenges, the real hard parts, are around doing those configs, those upgrades, those backups. So when you're making these decisions, just be aware of what the long-term cost is by trying to do this all on your own and not leveraging the other core competencies of AWS. And through digital transformation, a company that's been doing this very well is Bambara. Bambara has really a great story of, in the past 2 years, taking 13 different companies and completely transformed them. To tell you more about that journey, I want to introduce Anna from Bambara. Oh, sorry.
Hi everyone, my name is Anna Almen. I work as Head of Development Financial Services within Bambara. It's a pleasure to be here and share some of our story. Starting up, the payments industry had become complex and had become sort of less customer focused. They were almost forgotten. 3 years ago, a former hockey player from the north of Sweden discovered this. His name is Johan Tjernberg. He's today the CEO of Bambara. His mission was quite simple: to create the most customer-focused experience in the world, following all the trends from cash to card, payments integrations to other digital flows, and supporting this omnichannel that you can handle payments from all sources. With a fair amount of money to start with, Bambara was created from this mission. I joined Bambara 2 years ago, and my first assignment was to lead a re-engineering project, an initiative. It wasn't so much about re as define engineering and technology, our core values and principles within Bambara technology. From start, Bambara is a global company. As you can see on the map, we're all over. So the technology needs to embrace this distribution all around the world. The company grows fast. These are figures from last year. We had an organic growth of 25%. We have added approximately 2,600 merchants per month. We operate in 64 countries, and we have a value in total of 45 billion euros. So the technology needs to be able to scale in all multiple directions, in all sorts of directions. So to summarize, the technology needs to be flexible to handle all the innovation going on in the market, and it needs to handle the distribution to be able to globally work in this global world. And then it needs to be scalable so we can handle all the growth. And customer-centric, so easy to integrate to our technology. All of this ended up with a decision 2 years ago to run with Amazon Web Services. So in the end of 2015, we defined a high-level service-oriented architecture that we would like to grow into. We defined also a way of working, a true DevOps culture, and applying all the modern things, infrastructure as code, utilizing Docker containers and auto-scaling and all of that. And then each team is responsible end-to-end. So all of these pieces, a team is responsible for building it, operating it, and following all the end-to-end. And when we have all those loosely coupled services, each team actually can utilize Amazon Web Services differently. So if the needs are fulfilled with Lambda, we use that. If we need DynamoDB or S3 fulfills our needs, we use that. And for some of our most critical parts, where reliability requirements are so high that we need to apply interregional replication, we go for Cassandra. And in everything we do, security is always a key part. A more in-depth breakout session discussing our VPCs and so was done earlier today by my colleague Fredrik Ygge. And also a challenge that we've faced that we need to combine the cloud with physical. Our external partners require us to install pieces in a physical data center. And this is also something we had to work very, very hard with. We're still in the early days of our company history and growth, and a lot of focus last year was to go from this kind of sketch of our technology vision and start to put things in place. With the cloud financial model, we were really never trapped into a corner. We could we didn't have an upfront high investment that we need to stick to. So we could pilot ideas, we could evolve, and we can ask our customers and be customer-centric. So we can ask a customer for feedback and evolve with that. And this year, we've really seen all the work that we did last year and the effort for that. This morning, it was announced the 14th company in this family of Bambara, a company called Innocard in Switzerland. And this project started in January. I didn't know about it in the beginning of this year. So I got to know about this in January, and my colleagues and all the teams. But we saw this challenge, and we saw that all the things and technology enabled us to really, really put things together. So going from terminal physical things, combining that, having the whole flow of the payments, having those in local languages so everyone in Switzerland can see and in their local language, all of that we did and launched this a couple of weeks ago. So for us, it took us 10 weeks to get from someone wanted this to us to be able to deliver this, and it's fully up and running. When I talk about this to experts in the industry, they don't believe me. It's like, no. This is typically a 9 months or even 1.5 year project. That's what the industry knows about this complexity. So for us, be able to reduce the lead time to 10 weeks, it wouldn't have been possible. And we still do this without compromising security or quality. So everything we do is a consequence of a customer everyday life and challenges, and therefore being sort of reaction time and time to market is extremely important for us in this fast-moving industry. Our plans is to continue, evolve with our customers, both in terms of volume and geography. We will also look into data-driven optimizations for added customer value, and we'll look into how to integrate these techniques into our flow. Exactly what services we will use is a story we haven't written for ourselves yet. We will most likely use the same approach that we did last year. Pilot services, iterate, rewrite, test different hypotheses, and along with our customers. Not being trapped in any kind of infrastructure helps us to continue this exploration journey. And we can help our customer grow, which is the vision of Bambara, to be everyone's payment partner, regardless of payment channel. Thank you very much.
Oh.
That's all right.
One thing Anna talked about, which is super important, is around security and compliance. If you're in fintech, security is essential. But I would say regardless of what industry you're in, security should always be a top priority. We've architected AWS to be one of the most flexible and secure cloud environments available today. That's why you see a lot of large enterprises building with compliant sensitive data on top of us. This includes people like Philips, whose health patient platform, they're currently processing over 15 petabytes of patient data on top of AWS today. There was a great quote from Rob Alexander from, I think this is reInvent 2015. We said, we feel like our data is more safe in AWS, in the public cloud, than we could have done in our own physical data centers ourselves. And if I translate this to what this means for a startup, it means startups have access to all the same AWS policies, architecture, operational processes that these large enterprises have access to, right? You can build as a two-person startup on top of that same foundation as the largest enterprise. It's really leveled the playing field in terms of allowing companies to grow and really start tackling these enormously regulated industries. It makes it much simpler to reach the level of compliance and security you need to tackle everything from healthcare, life sciences, aerospace, fintech, and more. And this is really because of the shared security model we have. This is true for everybody here. All our customers have the same shared security model. We're going to manage and control all the components from the host operating system, virtualization layer, all the way down to the physical facility in which that service operates, so that you can focus on what really matters. That's building a secure application on top of this foundation. I've worked in a lot of regulated industries in the past. It includes Oscar and Betterment. And I want to share some kind of security best practices and my philosophies that you can either take or not take with you. My former colleague had a great quote, and he summed it up by saying, security is not something you check at the ends, but at the beginning and throughout. If you think about how security's really evolved with IT, it used to be you would spend time developing this application. You would make sure everything works, all the bugs are sorted out, and then you would hand it over to the security team who would go through with a checklist, run threat analysis against it, score it, and if you pass a certain score, ta-da, you're allowed to finally deploy this code out to production. When you go back to the previous slide talking about eliminating wait states, that's a long time to wait, especially if your teams are now deploying more and more often. So security is really something that needs to exist throughout the pipeline and life cycle of your entire application. You already do unit tests, integration tests. Adding security within that pipeline is easy. There's a lot of tools you can plug in there. There's hundreds of security partners we have that provide these types of services to build this type of automation. It's everybody's responsibility in any organization to focus on security. And the more you can automate it, the more you can get it into, oh, I didn't actually put that up there. The more you can get it into this pipeline, the more security will be taken care of for you. The second is encrypt everything. I mean, again, this is my belief, but we make it extremely simple to click a checkbox in EBS, in S3, in RDS, and have that data encrypted at rest. You can simply use TLS to encrypt data in transit, and now you're covered. Some people like to view some data as more sensitive than others. I would argue if there are people who are not supposed to be looking at your data, regardless of what it is, that's not a good thing. So if it's easy to encrypt, just take the extra couple seconds and click that checkbox. The third is least permissions. There's always that urgency, that sense of I'm working on this code, I finally got it working, I just want to get it out and finish my day. But taking the extra few minutes to go back and refactor, to understand, oh, I don't need all these ports open, oh, I don't need elevated permissions for this process, I don't need all these extra libraries to have my code actually run. Take the extra few minutes to clean up and scale down how much access these applications and services have. So when you deploy it, you'll be in a much better spot in terms of how that application will be running. Lastly, it's 2017. Storage is extremely cheap. I was notorious for going around and making sure that all my access logs, all my queries to databases, any type of log that existed throughout my entire infrastructure was just sent over to S3. It's extremely cheap to store it there. You can have a data horizon, push that off into Glacier. But I knew that if somebody came and said, what happened like 2 months ago with this one little incident, I could actually show line by line every single mutation throughout my environment. You can use services like Athena and Redshift Spectrum to query against that data, or feed it into MapReduce or more. Use Lambda, trigger, and identify security events through it. The important thing is audit everything you can, and that way you'll have access to it. It was extremely helpful in my time. The biggest, most important lesson I could ever pass on to anyone is keep it simple, all of it. As an engineer, it's very easy to want to over-engineer something, to want to build it my own way and let other engineers build it their own way. This complexity adds up over time. The more complex something is, the harder it's going to be to troubleshoot. So if you have a simple architecture, simple environment, you'll be able to pinpoint what's going on and what needs to be fixed much, much quicker. On top of that, the simpler your architecture is, the simpler it's going to be to secure. Two companies who are really focused in the security space because they're so heavily utilizing, they're basically two companies in the fintech space here in the Nordics, both in Denmark and in Stockholm, are both Tink and Lunarway. I'm actually pretty excited to invite both Ken and Andreas on stage. We can talk very briefly about the Nordic fintech space and what they're seeing from their side. So please introduce and welcome Andreas and Ken. So I guess for the audience, Andreas, can you give us a little rundown about Tink?
Yeah, okay, so Tink really wants to kill the anxiety in your personal finance. If that is you're worried about you should refinance your mortgage, if that is you just keeping track of how much you spend on shoes, we want to kind of give you the information and all the knowledge about your personal finance, so you don't have to worry about it.
Excellent. And then Ken, a little bit about Lunarway.
Sure. So Lunarway is a mobile banking solution. So obviously we don't have any branches, and we try to be the alternative for the classical incumbent bank. And with that, trying to first of all re-engineer financial products, and then build a really solid brand around it also, because banking is such a low interest feature, so it needs to be has a certain appeal also.
Excellent. Andreas, can you talk a little bit about how you're seeing startups disrupting fintech in the Nordics?
Yeah, we're just watching it, like see what's happening. But what I think has happened is, during a lot of years back, banks have had the monopoly on infrastructure and information, and this has led to, like, it's really hard to know where you are. Do you have a good deal where you are? Do you have a good mortgage? Like, do you have a good savings account? Do you earn the money you should? And also, what other players are there out there? And if I want to change, it's very hard to do. And this has had the effect that people people just have their one bank and they use the services that they always used. So what's in front of them, like, okay, what do my bank have? Okay, they have a savings account without any interest. I'm going to use that. And what we want to do is really to remove those obstacles, like sharing information with the user. Like, it's your data, you should see it, and you should be able to act on it. And also digitalizing the process of actually moving your mortgage or opening a savings account, so you can have multiple banks. And I think this, by us doing this, and also like Lunaway is providing like better services for the user, this also has forced the banks to kind of think about what they are doing. And because if they don't provide better services, people are going to leave them. So.
Yeah, and I think just what's really, really cool in the Nordic region is that you see a ton of initiatives from different angles challenging the established industry. So you see everything from payments to lending, infrastructure, banking. So it's cool to see that startups really attack the established environment from a lot of different angles. And also to see in the Nordic region that we have startups and fintech that are really scaling to proper businesses. The likes of iSettle, Klarna, the trade shift in Denmark also. So that's really great to see and inspire us the next wave of startups going into fintech.
Ken, you've come a long way with Lunaway today. Like, what are some big challenges you're seeing working within this regulated space?
Yeah, exactly that, the regulation. So I think working with regulators, you at an early stage experience that regulators are typically not a reply authority. Like, you cannot just shoot them questions. How should we be regulated? What should we do? They won't reply that. So you need to build your own case and present like, we should be regulated like this. We are acting like that. And with that dialogue, when you need to present the case on your own, from country to country, that takes time, costs money. So that's a strong challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's really like a tough challenge facing. I mean, what we also see, like, we need to empower the people also to kind of know that there are other alternatives than to do it than the way they've done before. Like, empower people with information and with user experience, so everything is it's nicer and easier to kind of have multiple banks, and you have your savings account there, you have your mortgage there, you have your pension savings over there, and you can manage it all through one place, and you don't have to worry about like who's serving you at the back end.
Great. So in finance, security and compliance are top priorities. Can you talk a little bit about, I guess, from the Tink perspective, how AWS has helped enable your organization?
Yeah, I mean, we're a very small company, and we are outside of our consumer app, which we want everyone to use. We also leverage our product and sell that basically to banks, so they can provide all this good data to their users. And when we are there sitting at the negotiation table, and we're actually using pretty much what you had here, your slide, like, okay, so we can piggyback on AWS and all the good infrastructure you have and all the security measures you have taken so far. And then we can piggyback on that, and we are perceived as safe as you are, basically. So it's really a good thing when we're at the negotiation table with like banks all over Europe.
Yeah, and I think just to follow up on that also, obviously we also use all of the services and rely on the contracts and stuff like that, but I think it's important also to push the regulators, to educate them what is going on. And it has been a tremendous help for Lunaway with the help we got from AWS. Like the Capital One quote that you just showed tells the story, right? That we need to educate them that it is a safe environment, that is the direction that we should go. And that has been really great for us to, also because when you face regulators, you need to bring like the A-team. You cannot just go there and say, hey, we're a startup, we would like to be a bank. So that has been like a huge assistance for Lunaway.
Funny. Yeah, at Oscar, we spent more time educating auditors on how the new services work than, it's the exact same issue. It's more an education.
Yeah, we like last year we went through a ISO certification on data security also, and having AWS backing that up with all the stuff that's available, that made it like from a half-year project, it made it to a 1-month project sort of thing. So it's really helpful.
So what's the future look like? What's your expansion plan for Tink?
I mean, we want to grow. Right now, we started with mortgages to kind of, okay, we see that you have a really bad mortgage, and we want you to spend less on your mortgage. So we partnered up with a few banks that provide great mortgages, and we want to continue doing that with other financial products also to like help the really good banks that are out there to get discovered and used and loved by a lot of users. So we really see like the mortgages is the first thing, and then we're just going to continue with other financial products.
And for Lunarway?
Yeah, I think for us it's I think two things. One is that we rely on a licensed partner in each market that we go into. So we need to push a bit of sense of urgency into the banks that we work with. That being one, and then also solving the challenges with regulators from country to country so we can roll out. So I think our aim in 2017 is to go live in the entire Nordic region and then see where that takes us.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you two for taking the time and joining us today. So please, thank you. So I want to thank all the customers that had the opportunity to come up here on stage and share their stories. Customers like CREE, Vivino, Bambara, Tink, and Lunarway. When building infrastructure, all the previous companies, one of the biggest value adds was really sharing what we were building while we were building it. I made it a point of getting all my engineering teams out to meet with other startups or even enterprises and saying, look, we have this new challenge. We're trying to tackle this one problem. This is the way we're looking to architect it. What do you think? And all of a sudden, you have all these free ideas coming back from the community. People saying, have you thought about doing it this other way? Have you tried using this new service? And it really kind of gave us a chance to sanity check what we were doing. It's extremely easy to work in a vacuum and build something for months and then release it and go, immediately someone says, oh, you could have done it this other way all along. So I really want to encourage you all to really share these challenges that you're working on. There are thousands of people here today across a ridiculous amount of industries, and you're all working on really interesting, hard problems. But there's a good opportunity to learn from each other. And the best way for people to know that you're working on these specific challenges is getting out there. Your two-person engineering team is only as good as those two people. But if you go to, for example, the Stockholm AWS meetup, well, now it's as good as the 800 members that attend it. So leverage the community whenever you have that chance. I also want to point startups and future entrepreneurs to our AWS Startups homepage. We have a lot of stories covering what startups are doing around the globe. In the last 6 months alone, we've covered over 125 startups working in every industry. So in addition to reading about these stories, there's a AWS Startups blog which features guest engineering blog posts from companies everywhere, from Mapbox and Branch and more, and showing their architecture and how they got to where they are today. So definitely check that out. And there's also a big section of presentations. These are great technical talks, but it covers more than just the technical piece. We've been working with startups for over 10 years, and we understand that in order to be successful, it takes more than just a solid infrastructure, right? As a startup, there's a lot more involved. So on here, you'll see an ever-growing list of content around pitching to VCs, how VC funding works, how to build an HR team, how to scale culture, and all the other common hurdles startups face. But lastly, what I hope is you can take what you've learned here today throughout the classes, workshops, all the people you've talked to, and go build. Share those ideas out with the community and innovate. And then together, we can all continue to tackle the even bigger challenges that await in 2018. So thank you very much.